Am I audible, guys? Give me a confirmation. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
And is the screen visible? Hello?
Yes.
The screen is
Yeah.
visible.
Okay, cool. So, everybody is here, so I will start the event. Okay. So, hello. Welcome everyone to the very first event of MLSA NIT Surat. And good evening, everyone. I will like responses in this workshop. So, you can turn off your mics in between and answer. So, good evening. I am expecting something.
Good evening.
Yeah. So fasten your
Good
seatbelts
evening,
and
sir.
yeah, good evening. So fasten your seatbelts and wear your thinking caps, as in this workshop we'll explore the world of React. Firstly, I want to clear that there should not be any kind of hesitation from your side. कितना भी छोटा डाउट हो, कैसा भी हो, कुछ भी मन में आए, just ask directly. We are your seniors only. And हमें अच्छा लगेगा if this whole workshop is interactive enough, because it should not be like heavy stuff or professor ki class. Okay, so ask anything you want, be it in Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, anything. We will address every question. So, and to make this event fun and interactive enough, we have kept some chocolate questions for you guys. Whoever will answer them first will get free stickers from me, of course, when the college reopens. So try to answer those questions. So, as you guys know, we come under the name of Microsoft, and I would like to show you some amazing technologies very quickly. First and foremost, the .NET framework is a software framework that runs primarily on Microsoft Windows, and is and contains a large class of libraries which is used to make different programming languages talk with each other and make Windows apps which we can use on desktop, right? So moving forward, we have .NET MVC also, which is used to make web applications for desktop primarily, and is open source completely, so anyone can contribute. And we also have Microsoft Azure, which is a platform that provides all sorts of cloud computing solutions used to build, deploy, test, and manage your apps and websites or desktop apps, anything. And Azure is comes under the third layer of the three-layer architecture, like the DevOps layer. So it will be a very boring workshop if we keep a workshop on DevOps, right, directly, because I assume you guys will be exploring right now ML and app development and web development on the front end and back end basis. So we have kept this workshop for React, as we know that you guys will be exploring React for now, and it will be good for you. Like, you can't jump directly to DevOps, right? So moving forward, we have my personal favorite, VS Code, which is a super awesome IDE, which is used for all sorts of development and is very good, very efficient because of its extension store. You can download any kind of extension and they are super useful. So I guess now you guys will have some basic idea of all the technologies which are displaying here. So I will call my friend Niranjan to take off take over this session and introduce you to React. Hello, Niranjan.
Hello everyone, I'm Niranjan, and let's start with the thing that you came here for, that is React. Am I audible, right? I'm clearly audible. Yeah, anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So let's start with the introduction. Uh, First of all, what is React? React is a declarative, efficient, and flexible JavaScript library used for building user interfaces. Now, it was created by Jordan Walk from Facebook, and it was originally used in newsfeed in the Facebook, and then also integrated in Instagram.com. And the power of this React is that it is open source, and it has been open source since 2013. and because of that, the community is huge, and the popularity of the React rose so much that it has higher stars, that is 175K plus in the GitHub front end JavaScript, which is followed by Angular. And what are the companies that use React in their web application? Some of them, for example, are Facebook, Netflix, PayPal, Instagram, Uber, etc. So yeah, if you want to check uh, if a website uses React or not, you can download a Chrome extension from the Chrome shop, and that is called React Developer Tool. It is offered by Facebook. Uh, so I can demonstrate here. I already have React Developer Tool here, and as you can see that this meet link. Okay, okay. Let's take the Babel website. Does this, if I want to check if this website uses React, it says that this page doesn't appear to use React. Now, like in the example I gave, I choose Netflix.com, right? So now that this icon shows that it is blue in color, so it shows that this website uses React. So if you want to check the components, like, and what are components, you will get to know them soon uh, in the future, right? You can check the components here. What all components are there in this uh, okay, in this website. And yeah, coming back to the presentation, uh, let's see what is the process that a browser follows so that we can see the web page or a website. So as you know, that front end consists of three parts: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. As CSS is mostly concerned with the styling rules and will not go there. We are more concerned with the HTML and JavaScript here. So what HTML and JavaScript, what they do is they form a DOM, and what is DOM for, like, for them who don't know? DOM is the abbreviation for what we call as document object model, or simply that we can say is it is a way or a structure in which the web page is stored or it is accessed by the website or the by the browser, so that it can render the website, right, or it can show the website. So this is the normal flow when we use HTML and vanilla JavaScript. But when we use React, the flow becomes quite different. It is same for HTML and CSS, but the flow for JavaScript becomes quite indirect. So what it does is, as you saw that React is composed of components, and what are components you'll know in the future, like in coming in, like soon. So these components form together a virtual DOM. Like, you know that the DOM is a structure, right? So let's call that DOM, that the HTML is pointing. Let's call that DOM as real DOM, and what the React component combinedly form, like, let me call them as uh, a virtual DOM. So what is virtual DOM? Virtual DOM is a copy of original DOM, which is kept in memory, and it is synced with the real DOM by using some libraries like React DOM. Uh, this is called as reconciliation. So the advantage of virtual DOM here is that we do not have to, after making some changes, we do not have to uh, recreate all the DOM structure. Rather, we can just update that particular element, and this is quite efficient. And also, when if we don't know what changes are to be made, then virtual DOM becomes necessary, as it happens in React. So now the most important question comes to our mind is, why to use React when you have uh, things like JavaScript, and we can manipulate DOM using only plain JavaScript. So the first thing that comes to mind is it has uh, reusable components. Like, you do not have to code separately again and again for something like buttons or forms. You already have components, and these components will have particular structure that can be used again and again. And React auto updates UI when data changes, and it also as it auto updates, it reduces our burden, right? So, and as I explained earlier, uh, it uses virtual DOM, and therefore the performance and efficiency becomes quite incredible. So the testability is quite it's quite awesome. We can test the app by component, and yeah, you may know this, like you'll know the process. And how does how does the state change? So React re-renders the component, and also it stores a snapshot of the previous DOM structure and compares with the current, and apply whatever the minimal set of changes are there to the actual DOM. So this will because of that, the third point becomes quite essential. Now, as there is React JS for a browser or website, you can say that React Native is for iOS and mobile apps. So it is same, but just as it's like a kin of React JS, but only for the mobile application. Now, yeah, just keep calm and React. Yeah, and now it was the the main introduction of React, but here I'm going to introduce you some technologies, or what you can say as some kind of translators, so that you can use your current the newest JavaScript, so that it like you can work efficiently. First of all is Webpack and Babel. So what is Babel exactly? Babel is a simple translator which translates your fancy ES6, that is ES6 plus, or currently ES7. Okay, it translates our fancy JS code into not so fancy ES5. Once that the browsers or Node.js understand. So if the question is, if the browser and Node.js understand only ES5, then why do we use ES6? Right. So this may be a question that you may get in your mind. Uh, okay, I'll answer it. Okay. Uh, the thing is, we are always fascinated by new technologies that come. So take for example cryptocurrency. We'll always choose, like saying the current trend, we'll always choose cryptocurrency over normal money, right? So why is that? Like it's a human tendency that anyone who loves technology, that if anything latest or new comes, we uh, we can't wait to use that, right? So even if it is not supported by other like the current technology, we like to use that. So that is what makes us use the ES6. And also the thing is, ES6 makes our code much simpler and crisp and short. So as you can see here, we have in the given snippet, we have imported a moment library from the moment. And what I do is I create, I use a format method so that I can convert the year into mm. Okay. So that is what I export. While if I do that, if I do the same thing in ES5 syntax, what I have to do is I have to create a function, let's say get date string, and then I have to create uh, a date, a date object, and then use the method format on it, and then export it. So it becomes it may look simple here, but when there are multiple functions and exports there, it becomes quite tiresome, and therefore ES6 can be a big help. And also the thing is, why should we burden ourselves with writing this much code when when we can convert it and let the browser do that job? So yeah, and then uh, the next thing is, what is Webpack? If Babel is considered as a translator only for JS, you can think of Webpack as a mega multi-translator that works with all kinds of languages. For example, Webpack often runs Babel as one of its jobs. Another example, Webpack can collect all your inline CSS styles in your JavaScript file and bundle them into one. So when is Babel used and when is a Webpack used? So Babel is used when you are like we can use Babel in the backend so that we can convert the ES6 or plus or like a greater version of JS syntax into the ES5, and when we want to use with like work with Node.js. So Webpack can be used in the front end to compile JS code and many other assets into a few small bundle files that our users can download when they first load our website. And there are some UI libraries that like that are very helpful for and make our lives easier. Uh, like for example, and design, material UI, and etc. And if you create any React app of your own, uh, I guess you will after this session. I guess some of then you may guess that where can you deploy your app. Uh, then we have our own Microsoft Azure. We can deploy our app on AWS, that is Amazon Web Services. We can do it on GitHub. We can do it on Firebase. It's your choice. Uh, yeah, so I hope after this session you can. I've given the basic requirements and introduction to that React domain, uh, and I'll hand over to my colleagues Kritika and Sankirtana for future. Uh, yeah, thank you.
My screen is visible, right? Hello?
It is. You're audible.
Okay. So, hello guys. Now we are going to explain about the React components. So, a component is one of the basic building blocks of React. So, every application you develop in React will be made up of pieces called components. And these components make the task of building UI very easy. So you can see that UI is broken down into multiple individual pieces. So they are called components. So in a web page, there are different components, there are different pieces. And later we work on these components independently, and later we merge all these components into a parent component. So where you will find that in the UI. Next, coming to the class component. So whenever you're creating a class in a React, you have to basically use a capital letter. Like for example, here we use class fashion, so here F is capital. And also you have to extend the React component. So the React extending the component will basically allow us to pass the props to the user defined in the class. And then we need to also use a render function. So render function basically renders the HTML, basically the stuff which you want to show in the web browser. So in the React, we can also nest the components inside one another. So this you can basically use this nesting components and create a complex user interfaces, and the components can be nested using the import and the export method. In the import feature, basically we import a particular module and use it into the another module, and the export feature we use it to export a particular module and use it into another module. So as you can see here, that I have shown the examples like export default class comp1 extends react.component, and here import comp1 from here we basically keep the address. So for export, this is how we show as a syntax, and for import we use a address like components and from comp, like from where it's coming from. And for exporting we use only one object, and for importing we use the address. So let's look into a class with multiple class objects like class 1, class 2, class 3. So here export can be used using multiple objects. So a named export or an export can be used for multiple class objects from a file. So there can be several named export from a single file. And while importing, you can use multiple objects, but the object name cannot be changed while you're importing. So the two important functions here are the render function and the constructor function. So rendering is the most important procedure that a programmer has to manage in the front-end development, which is used to describe the view to be rendered in the browser window. So whatever we are trying to show it in the front end, that will be shown using the render method. And the constructor function, as we have learned in object-oriented programming, it is used to create an object. So in React words, we can say that a function which is used to initialize an object state given in a class. So that's how in React we create constructors. So now we will look into the lifecycle events. So lifecycle events is where in React where you can manipulate and also monitor the components. So there are four phases for a lifecycle. One is the initialization, one is the mounting, one is the updating, and the last phase is the unmounting. So in the initialization state, the component is constructed, and then it is done in the constructor of a component class. So we're making a component class. Inside that we will be having a constructor. And then after initializing, we have the mounting, where the React domain mounts or inserts component into DOM. And then we have the updating, when the React updates its component whenever there's a change in the state or props. That time the updation will be done. And then the last component is basically when we remove the component. That's when unmounting happens. That's when we remove the component from the DOM tree. That time unmounting will be happening. So I'll be explaining what is mounting. So mounting is a phase of the component of a life cycle when the initialization of the component is completed and the component is mounted on the DOM and rendered for the first time on the page. So that's the time when mounting will be used. So here, as you can see, there are two functions. One is component will mount and component did mount. So we use component will mount when it have to get invoked just before the render function is executed. But component did mount will be executed when it gets invoked, like when the render function gets executed. After that, this component did mount will be invoked. And then there is something called unmounting. So unmounting is the final phase of the lifecycle where you are removing the component from the web DOM. So that's the time when component unmount will be invoked. So I'll be showing through an example, like live example, so you can understand the life cycles in a better way. So I've already started to run the project. So as you can see, it's the time given here, and the component is basically getting updated these many times. That's because at every second a new date is being shown here. So that's how here it's being counted. But when you delete the clock here, where unmount happens, and that's how it's removed. And then again, it's getting mounted using component did mount. So here, as you can see, that I have created a class clock which extends the component, and here I have created a constructor function where I have created new state where the date will be the new date and count will be given as 0. So here the render function will be called, which is the hello world and the date. So basically I'm using this keyword to get the state of the particular date, like the current date. And then here, as you can see, there is also the this.state.count basically gives the current count, like how many times it's being changed or updated. So that's being counted and that's being shown here. And then here we have the did mount. So this is where it happens after the render is shown. After the render is invoked, this component.did mount will happen. So here it's basically setting the interval. So after every second, it will be changing the time, like it will be updating. So whenever it's getting updated, this function will be invoked. So here is how whenever it's updated, the count will be happening, like +1. So as you can basically see here, that's how it's counting. Like till now 77 seconds happened, so 77 times it's been updated. And then we have created another file for display clock. So here basically I have done this file for basically unmounting or deleting the particular component. So here, as you can see, I have made this function delete clock. So here basically it will be changing the state to false. Already default was true, but later I will be converting it to false. So basically here it will be checking the render function. So render function is used for basically showing what it have to be shown in the web page. So what have to be returning in the web page. So here as the state is true, so the clock will be shown, the current thing. And if I click the following button, so it will be showing the alert and then it will be gone. So that's how unmount happens. And now back to the PPT. So now let's see what is this keyword. So this keyword is a very important keyword when it comes to class components. So this keyword references to the object that is executing the current function. So whatever current function is there, so whenever we call this function, it will be showing the current object. So there are two rules. One is basically when there's a function inside an object and you're calling that function outside the object. And second thing is a regular function. So it's not a part of an object, but it will be outside. So when it's outside, it would be basically showing the window object or it will be showing the global object. So global object when we be using the node command, but window when we are doing it in the browser. So I'll be showing the example of that. So I have created a small code here to show how this works. So basically here it's a object created here and it's the title, and then I have made a function here. So this is a regular function and this is like this is an object. So this is a function which is inside an object. So if I just run this code. So here it will be showing the global object. This is the global object, which is shown by the regular function. So when we're using the node function, it will be showing that way. But here video.play, which is inside the object, so it will be showing the current object's data. So that's here. This is the thing. So here it's showing the title and object variable is showing. But if we do that in the, for example, in the browser itself, so as you can see in the browser, it's showing the window object, and here it's showing the current object which has been referenced. This is how this has these two functions here. And now coming to the binding functions. So binding function is used to pass the data as an argument to the function of the class-based component. So it's basically used when you bind both of the object and the functions. So here is how is the syntax. So basically there are two parameters. One is this argument is compulsory, and then we keep on passing the argument 1, argument 2, but this is optional. So it's up to the developer or whatever use they have regarding this. So next we'll be going to the functional component. So yeah, Kritika would be taking the further functional component.
Hey guys, is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
And guys, let's make it a little bit interactive. You can ask the questions in chat. So we're gonna start with the functional components. I'm audible also, right?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. So when we talk about React, one big advantage is reusable web components. An example you would have seen in Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you've ever seen that, then every tweet will have like, share, retweet, and similar options. All those are considered as components. So it's reusable throughout the application. After every tweet, we call them. So it's easier to do it in the React way than to do it in the JS way. So this will be our workflow, which we're going to do. We'll see what are React components, then see what are props, state, then the difference between state and stateful components, then the life cycle of components using functions. So first of all, React components. In React, everything is a component. Even the smallest component is embedded into many other bigger components, and that's React. So when we build them all into one application, we can easily update or change just the component which is changing. That's the virtual DOM concept explained in the introduction. So here we have the UI tree. We can consider the first component, the parent component, as app.js file, which we will be seeing in a short time, and the other ones are the child components. And as I said, they can be embedded in child components can be embedded inside parent components, and props can be passed. So we have this is a create React app. This is how we create a basic React app. And we call here functional components just because we use functions here to call the components, to make the components. So if you're using this command, you'll have to have Node first installed in your computer. And if you have older versions of Node, you might need to do npm install -g create React app. And that's the other commands are the same. This create React app is a comfortable environment, and that's the best way to beginner to start with React. So this will be the right side. You can see the file structure. This is how you'll have the React app when you use it with the create React app, and this is the function. So when we create a function, after creating using a React app, you see the folder structure, and practically you wouldn't want everything to go inside the index.js file react dom.render, because if you have many components, we'll want to split them separately because it'll get messy, right? It'll get impossible to almost maintain it. Now, these we will see how to write a function. A function in that, as Sankitna said, the export and import commands will be used for the parent child components to be called inside the parent components. But here, function app, and in this line, you can add between return and this function app, you can add whatever const variables, whatever variables you have want to maintain in this application. And then this is a JSX part. JSX is nothing but JS plus HTML. So if you have to call some variables inside this return statement, you will have to just use angular brackets. And let's see the implementation. I've created the same app using create React app. So this React strict mode is nothing but it's a sort of a helper component that will help you write better components, better React as a wrap. Whatever is wrapped inside React strict will have some specific strict instructions. And get element by ID root is something from index.html where we have the root. So if I have to make a function in app.js, here we have made. We call all the variables which we need using const, var, or let, and then inside return we call them, and then we export it using export default and the function name. So this is how we do it. Now there's another type to make functions. There's another type called arrow functions. That's what we're going to see. So before we start this, we should know that there are three types of declarations in JS. And now this type of writing a function called arrow function is called also lambda functions or compact functions. They cannot be used everywhere and they have their own limitation, but let's just learn how to use it. So var means that it's globally scoped or function scoped, while let and const both are block scoped. Var can be updated and redeclared, let can be updated but not redeclared, and const can be neither updated nor redeclared. So this way, I write function xyz. In the arrow function, it will be const xyz or any other type of declaration xyz equal to. And in this, you put brackets and put how many ever parameters you want to pass inside this. If it's more or less than, if it's just one, you can no need of brackets also. And here also return statement, we can have angular brackets if there are more than one statement. Now this big function and small functions are this is just change in function. So props, we'll come to props. Before that, we'll see the implementation of const. So I made a folder called components and I kept all my components inside that. We can also make separate folders for each component and call it. So when we call welcome.js inside app.js, we have to just do import and from which file. So this is how we do it. And here also we have the same thing, const, and then whatever we need, and then the return statement. Now let's go to props. What are props? Props is like a special keyword in React, which stands for properties, and it's being used for passing data from one component to another. And furthermore, the props is read only, which means that data coming from the parent should not be changed by the child component. And it works similar to HTML and it flows from parent to child. It's unidirectional, it cannot flow otherwise. Immutable means it cannot be changed. So this is how we deal with props. If I have a example we showed that this const details. If we want to pass it from parent component to child component, then in the return function we'll call the child component, and inside that we'll pass all the details which we want. Data is equal to details.d, venue is equal to details.venue. Similarly, if we want to pass directly all the details, that also we could do by doing details is equal to details. This is also possible, and this has been done here. So I have made this small application for demonstration purpose, and welcome, and in this I pass date, venue, time and details, which are all const variables from here. When I pass details, it's this whole lot of things which are passed. And in welcome to JS, I catch it by using props. Props, as I said, it's just a keyword which we have explained right now. We can also write console.log, which will show it everything in the console. And here I'm using everything. Let's learn React. And I'm printing all those values by using date is equal to props dot details dot d, which was the date. Time was props dot details dot time. The details had everything. We can also use props dot time, props dot venue also here because we have already done them separately also. So that is how it looked like here. Everything is here, date, time, venue. Even though the data was in another props, it got passed here. So that's how we pass it into another function. Remember, props are immutable, so we cannot change any of these functions. That's why they are known as stateless functions. Now we are coming to state. Till now, if you have any questions, you can ask. Also, I can provide my GitHub account, which has the same code which I'm explaining right now. You can do npm start. So we come to state. So as I said, we cannot change props. Then what's the use? Like there's no excitement in changing things. It's just a thing like you can do it normally in JS also. So I have to pass data as parameters here, but in state, I can change the data. The biggest thing is like it's not immutable anymore. So state is like something that keeps track of updates over time. Like ice changing to water, we can show the temperature change, the time change, and everything. So state, as I said, it is mutable and they are kept simple. So state is more like a smarter function than stateless is like dumb function because example, if I keep a button and I call the event handler and use a state, then the state can tell me how many times I click the button, but that won't be possible with stateless. The stateless is just gonna call the button once and it's just a display function. So stateless does not have the past, current, and possible future, but stateful has every information about everything. So that's what I said. Props will return a JSX component. That is what stateless components were. And so far we have learned stateless. Now let's go to stateful using states. So functional components, when they first were introduced, they didn't have this. They had this big disadvantage where they couldn't match with the class base because of this non-state, and that's the gap was filled by using React hooks. That's what we're going to learn. Hooks are nothing but special functions used using state. The first state, the first hook which we're going to learn is use state hook. We call it inside a functional component to add some local state and such. So here, const change, comma set change is equal to use state true. This is the prototype of how do you build a use state hook. So this true value gets saved into the change. Change is a variable, set change is a function. So this true will be set into change is equal to true. And set change is a function which can change the change variable. Let's change, let's see the next example, const name is equal to name comma set name. So use state in that there's no value. So the empty value gets assigned to name. And whenever I call some event handler and call the use state hook, the set name function, whenever it's called, it changes the name to whatever we want it to. So this use state is like the this dot set state in a class, but it doesn't have merged the old and new state together. So use effect. Here, when you call use effect, you're telling React to run your effect functions after flushing changes to the DOM. Effects are declared inside the component, so they don't have access to their props and states by default. But React runs these effects after every render, including the first render. And we'll see how to manage the renders using the life cycles later. So effects may also optionally specify how to clean up after them by returning a function. For example, this component I have done reveal event.js. So this component has change set change use state is equal to true. So whenever this button is clicked, I'm changing the set change. I'm toggling the change from true or false. So if it is true, it will display this, and if it's false, it's gonna reveal the event name. So that's how we're gonna see this. Whenever I click reveal event, how many ever times it's gonna go from yes to no to yes to no. That's how we are doing it. And next comes the use effect hook. The use effect hook could be this is a use effect hook where whatever I type in the name, I'm going to change the use effect hook for that. So the nameplate function, enter name, and this whenever it's on chain, it will go to handle chain. Handle chain is a custom handler which I made, and it will set the name to event.target.value. And when it is set name, it will use its use effect also. Document.title hi name. And before doing all these hooks, you have to export and import them. Import them from use effect and use state. So now, whenever I type name, my header will also change, and somewhere this should also be typed. Let's check that. So here I type this, and here the title is also changed. This is like two things. One is say, changing through set state, and the other is changing through use effect. Other one is use state. So that's the use effect, and there are many other hooks also. You can explore them more in reactfields.org, and use your imagination is something like a custom hook. It offers the flexibility of sharing your logic. What if you don't have a hook designed for what logic you want? So in case that happens, you can have always a custom hook, and you can code it yourself. You can use animation declaratives, timers, and whatnot in these, and it's as easy to use as classic. So this is how you build your own hooks. It's a little more of a not so beginner friendly. So we'll not. I haven't kept the whole code for it. It's just one snippet of it. And use friend status is my hook name which I'm building. So every time this is null first, and whenever this API is called, it takes the friend ID and checks the friend ID status. And if it is online or if it's not online, it sets it back to online. So this is the API will give me the status of the friend ID, and then I can handle it using handle state change. So now tell me if there's a possibility of making two functions in the same JSX file. Hello, am I audible? So is there a possibility of making two functions in the same JS file and calling them? And if so, how will we import or export it? So I'll tell that. So here I made two functions here. One is one function clock using effects and hooks. So here I set the date first to the new date, and whenever the date.toString is called here, so whenever the use effect is called, it calls refresh clock function for 100,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. So it sets the date to the new date, and this is like a unmount function. This means that it will be called only once, and return function means that it will unmount whenever needed, and it will clear the timer ID. So that's how we can see a nice clock running over here. So the next is the life cycle of functions. Hooks are also allowed to helps us to write these React components using lifecycle methods. So the component didn't mount. It was shown by Sankitna in the classes, but when we have to use it using functions, we'll just have to use one square bracket inside the use of x function. This square bracket actually it helps and tells the component to be called only once and not every time. This is the empty array. But if we do not pass the empty array, it will just call it re-rend at every re-rendering. This time it will be evaluated on every re-render. So the optional second argument is just a thing which will trigger the re-evaluation. So when you want to unmount something, we'll just have to add a return statement inside the use effect. So this way it will just be called for the last time. The only difference is that the return statement, and if this function is returned, then this function is only when the it's totally removed from the DOM. So React hooks provide a great deal of flexibility and implementing these. I hope you enjoyed the functional components. I'm passing it forward to Sidesh for learning Redux instead.
Hello. So let's begin with the part of Redux. So it is a very interesting part. First of all, I will share my screen so that you can exactly see what I'm trying to explain here. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, so let's begin with Redux. So basically, the first thing I would like to means say that I will take this part very slow, because studying Redux is a slightly advanced topic. Means first you try to learn React, then try to learn about state, then you come to state management, and then you come to Redux. So I'm going to take it very slow, and you also try to be as attentive as possible and try to ask questions along with it. So let's move on. So the first question that everyone would ask is, what is Redux and what is the need for it? So basically, Redux is an open source JavaScript library for managing and centralizing application state. As discussed in the previous part, like state, what is state? State is like a snapshot of the application at a particular time. Like every application has some dynamic data that needs to be shared among the components or in the state. Like as in the previous part of functional components, you have seen that use state hook was used. Now that particular state was just for the particular component, means any other component foreign to that particular component cannot use it. But what is Redux? And this particular statement is signifying that there is a centralized application for state. Means each and every component can access that state of the application. So this is an advantage. Now next, what is state? State is an inbuilt object, means it is a reserved key in the React.js. The state holds the property value with the keys that belong to the component. So basically, state is a value and key pair. So and it is like an object. It is just for means components use it to access the state, and they I will explain further what a function they use to mutate it. So let's move on. And what is React Redux? Now, Redux is an independent thing which you can use in other JavaScript applications too. But React Redux is a specialized means it is a version built for React, using the means facilitating the use in the components and stuff. Okay, so let's move on. Now this is the architecture of Redux, like how things do function inside Redux path, or the way or how the information flows when we use Redux in our application. The first thing, the most is the thing that everyone might know is the view. Like what is the view? Like I will click on each of the component, and in the model I think the data will pop up. You can read it for your time, but I will carry on with my explanation. The view is this contains the components and viewport of the DOM tree. Like in the most of you must have completed in the first year, mostly the people who have completed their computer science degree, have been in computer science in the first year, might have studied about it, because yes. So this is the view which contains the viewport and the document object model tree. So this is view is clear. Then what is actions? Action, there are two type of things that we use to make it more clear and sophisticated is action creators and actions. Now basically action is just an object which is fed to dispatch function. Now action creator is a function which returns an object. So what are we doing? We are facilitating ourselves by declaring a function that we can call from by importing that particular actions from any point of the application. So action creators are the functions which return objects, and that are known as actions. Now, as per written here, it is a function which returns an object. The object is the action, and the function is called the action creator. The object consists of a property named as type, which is compulsory because it is the property on which the reducer understands how the state to be changed. So it is an important property that a action can have. So let's move on to dispatch. What is dispatch function? Now it is a function which provides an object known as action as an argument to the store. Now what is store? Store is made up of reducers. Reducers are the functions which take the action that is provided to store and change the state. The state is like an object which is means accessible to reducers, and we tell the reducers to change the particular state by calling the dispatch function. And what is the key here is what type of information do we pass? It is the actions that we pass to dispatch which is used to change the state by reducer, and reducer resides inside the store, right? Means reducers have access to the stores. Okay, now let us move on to reducer. It is a function which returns a new state depending on the changes caused by the action that was passed to the store by dispatch. Like I said recently that this particular statement just signifies that basically this is the function that changes the state. Now there are two point of views. There are the state is immutable, means it cannot be changed. So the sentence here states that it creates a copy every time, means there is a previous state or initial state on which afterwards changes are made and a newer version of state is presented. The previous version is still intact. So this means the state previous state is preserved but new state is also created here. And also there and returns the previous or unchanged state if the action is invalid. As I said, that reducer acts with the actions to change the state in the store. So if the action is means what not proper, or it doesn't mean anything, or it is a flaw there, the application won't be at a stop. It would just provide the previous state there. So next we have state that is explained, I think so, previously. And what is store? A store is an object which holds the whole state tree of your application. The only way to change the state is inside is to dispatch an action on it. And the store decide like which reducer to call to change the particular state. Okay. Now let us see this in practical mode, like seeing something in practically in VS Code and seeing the code would be more beneficial to you all. So let's move on. Let's do it practically. Okay. Now, as you can see that you might, when you start studying about React and particular state management, this particular example would be there hundreds of web pages, like the particular example of increasing the increment count of an integer from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I will try to clarify one point here that is intrinsic to React. That is, if I click on increase button, it is increasing the middle integer, right? 12, 13, 14, 15, and decrease, it is going on decreasing. But do you have watched or have forgot that the rest of the application is not reloading? Only the component which is having this much statements, like this increment message, this particular buttons, and this state, this is only reloading. If I reload the particular web page here, then the state is also comes to 0 again. So far what was refreshing? It was refreshing the component only, because state here is because the state from the store was belonging to this particular component, so the rest of the application did not load. This is the advantage of React, that it doesn't have to reload the whole web page when you just need to change a particular component out of it. Now let's see its code. Okay, like we have here, 1 minute. Okay, now this is the particular code that was visible on the screen beforehand. It is the counter message that was saying that this is increment or this is decrement, and this is the increase button, this is the decrease button, and this is the counter state that was changing upon clicking the button. Now the thing is, like we have to you might be interested to see like what are the actions, action creators, and everything that I talked before. So let's see that. So as you can see the left side, what is action constants? This is just done for your benefit, or just to make it everything clear. It is not necessary to make action constants, but you can use them to avoid spelling mistakes, because if you use the variable, the VS Code will prompt you, but if there is a problem in the string literal, it won't. So I think so it is useful this way to keep it all together, so that you won't make the same mistakes again and again. Then as I explained, there is a action creators. Action creators. Now you might see a different structure here, that I have created action creators as an object, and inside that I have implemented the properties as functions. So basically it is nothing but I just used to export dash together. The problem is, when I use export default, it means that there should be only one export from that file. If I use export directly, export action creators, then I have to do a named export or named import from this particular file. So to avoid this, I introduced an object, so it becomes more structured and more easy to read. Now as I said previously, what is action creators? Action creator is a function which returns an object, and this particular object has a field named as type, which is very important. Now we will see why it is important. And it is also as having a payload, like this is increment. As you can see on the web page, this is increment, this is the payload of the particular state, and this is counter. The increase on clicking increase, the action passed to the dispatch is increment. On clicking decrease, it is called as decrement. So these particular actions, like increment here is called, then it is called as decrement on the clicking of the second button. Now this was action creators. Now let's move on to what is reducers. So as I said, reducer is a function that takes the previous existing state of the application and an action, right? And an action, and then it uses action type. As I said in the previous slide, the type is very important. Why it is important? Because depending on the type, the reducer decides how to change the state. Now you can see here, like I have used the spread operator here on state. Why? Why didn't I directly change it? No, the state is immutable, so I need to keep the previous state intact and make the further changes on the state itself. Like here, counter. Counter is the one that is our state that I have used in that particular field, like counter, like state.counter +1. So whenever I click on increase, it increases the counter by 1, and decrease it by 1. So this was means you try to absorb as much as possible, because it is not expected to remember it on the first go. It is just to make you familiar with the various type of variable names and type of structure that you might see and remember this particular stuff when you learn it further on in your journey to learn React. Then the last thing remains is the store. Like what is the store? Store is a means it is a thing that wraps your application and which contains all the state you have. Now what I provided to the argument as to store, it is counter state changer. And what is counter state changer? As you can see here in the import, counter state changer is a reducer that I explained previously. So that reducer is being provided as argument to the store, so that the store has only one option to check which reducer can handle this particular action request, and that is counter state changer. Okay. Now, as I said, that particular point was there that we can use 2 or more reducers in a particular store or to change the states of a particular store. Like, how can we do that? So let me first introduce to another reducer. Like, I will comment this store and introduce another store with another reducer. Right? It is a letter state changer. Now let me edit the demo page too, so that you can be able to see the changes on the main screen. Like, this was part for the count changer, so I will comment it. I have just separate, like, you can also say that you have discussed like the code shouldn't be repeated, as it is a part of React and very important pro of React that you are saved from the efforts of repeating the code. But to particularly make it very clear, I have kept in the same file and repeated the code just to show you each and every detail like what I'm doing here. If I comment this, that this count changer has been commented, so it would not affect the DOM right now. And this is alphabet changer. This is simple HTML. Okay, so I have changed this, and let's see the what is changed here. The store is supplied with a single reducer named letter state changer. Now this is the letter. I click on next alphabet, it increases the alphabet. I click on previous alphabet, it reduces the alphabet. Same functionality, but here the state is only valid till 26 members, like A to Z. After that, it will reset. Like you can see, I'll get it to 26 clicks. Now the 27th, it will reset to A. Alphabet is reset to A. And even if I try to click before previous alphabet, then A doesn't exist. So it will anyway say that alphabet is reset to A. Now this is another, like if you want, we can revisit all the creators, action creators and all stuff in a quick way. So either there was increment, that was decrement, that was discussed for the count. Now we have letter increment and letter decrement. I have intentionally written these long names just to make it very clear. Like in type of development, you can develop your own scheme of naming the variables, so it might suit your own development styles. So your type is actions dot letter increment. As I said, the action is imported from action constants, so it is just a way to write the string literals here. So payload, this is next alphabet that was seen here. I think this is next alphabet. Yes, this is next alphabet. So this message payload is representing the website because that particular action creator was called, and the action here is type of action letter in decrement. Here it is increment, here it is decrement, right? So this is clear. And as I said that letters are limited to 26 characters, so we need also another action that might reset the counter or state to again 65. Now 65 is the means ASCII value of A comes out to be 65. So I'm saying that when it is reset to that, I will reset it to 65. So either letter reset. Now this function will return a type of action letter reset and alphabet is reset to A. Now this was action creators. Now let's see what type of reducer this particular letter change function have. As I said, the initial state is 65. As I will show you in the demo one page, like why it is 65 and how to convert it to letter A part. And that is a switch of action types. As I discussed, action is just the object passed down to reducers to further change the state. Okay, now I have action here, type here, and on depending on the type, like whether it is letter increment, decrement or reset, the particular letter and letter message is changed. So these changes you are seeing on the web page here. These all changes are visible here, so it is working fine. Now next we have the store. Like I initially changed it to letter state changer, so I change the store, but it is not necessary. You can have multiple store, but that is a very bad way of implementing a website. Never to do multiple stores because it can confuse the overall state of the application, and also will interfere with the developer tools that are useful for you when you build huge applications. So I don't recommend using multiple store. I'm just using here to show you the concept. Now this was the letter changer. Now let's, like, what if I want to change two states from two different components and that have different reducers and use the same store in the final go. So I've implemented another store with a function here that you can see, that is create store, that was there initially. Like I'm creating store from a reducer here now, but here I'm using a function known as combined reducers. Combined reducers is a function which takes all the reducers that I need in my store, that I means that store can access these particular reducers, that is counter state changer and letter state changer. These two reducers are available to the store right now. So to check the particular changes, is this still valid or working? Let's move to demo one and comment this alphabet part. Again, as I said, it is not a good practice to repeat code, but for explanation, I'm doing so. And then we'll uncomment this part that was written only for the purpose of this. And like it says, cannot read counter message. Like why this happened? Because I changed the combined state reducer. It would take time to redo it. If I do it again, it is again giving problem. Okay, so wait a second. Like it is natural to have errors in development. Like development is about committing errors and getting out of it. So you can read it here, like line 71, demo message. The counter message is not available. Okay, give me a second. It should take some time. Till that we can read other too. Like this particular part, as I discussed so far. Like till the system is running another tab for it, we'll see like what is dispatcher, reducer. We saw the state, we saw the store. Like a particular store is combined of reducers. As I explained what is reducer, it takes an action to change the state. This so far is been well explained. Just we are going to see an example, like how we combine reducer and how both of them work. Like it has launched a new part. Do you have any questions? Like we can utilize this time for particular questions. Like just waiting for that to load. Okay. There's still a problem. Okay, let it be. We will move on to the next slide. Now we will come to the pros and cons of this. Like there is always one source of truth, this store. Thus, there is no confusion about how to sync the current state with the actions and the part of the application. Now, as you can see, there is always a source of truth. Means there is a global state which can be accessible to each and every component. That is a particular pro here. And see, another con that is the most important here. There is no encapsulation. Like there is that means it is also a pro and it is also a con. Means if it is available for each and every component, there is no encapsulation because each and every component can access it. So it is also a con and also a pro by the same time. Now the code is easier maintained because it predictable outcomes and strict structure. Like we saw that particular error was there. So why was that error? Because I recompiled it and there was some mistake in the state, I think. So after brainstorming, it can be solved. And there is a con that some parts of the cell are just boilerplates. Like we saw, we were just creating lots of files, like creating action constant, action creators, reducers, store, and it was a boilerplates. But these are necessary to be kept to make the system working fine and running good. Like Redux makes coding more consistent due to the more stringent coding organization procedures. Yes, the Redux makes coding more consistent because you have various ways to check for whether a problem is there or not in particular code or not. So then we have, as the state is immutable in React, as I discussed, the state is immutable in Redux. You can just the previous state would be there, but you can redefine the newer state. Updates the state by running a new state every time, which can cause excessive use of memory. Now, this can be a con. Like excessive use of memory is not a good thing. That's very useful, especially during the initial render, making the better user experience and search engine optimization. Like I say, like state management makes a particular component to render, which can speed up the process and track everything. Like I said, app in real time from actions to state changes. So this is very important. The states are the house where the dynamic data of the application resides. So if there is any problem, the developers can check this particular state, like they can console the particular state and check where which thing is null or undefined and try to solve it very quickly. So this was all about React Redux. Thanks a lot, and that's it for Redux for now, and keep exploring. Thank you.
Hello, Pushpendra, are you speaking?
If you are speaking, you are not audible.
Yeah, you are not audible.
So no issues. Neil Baurwa can go with his section. Until then, Pushpendra will fix his issue.
Yeah, okay. Hey guys. My screen is visible, right?
Yep, it's visible.
Okay. So we will go with React build. So there are two types of first, build, like production build and development build. And before this build, we will go with React scripts. So what happens when you create a new React app? React takes care of everything, every configuration, and due to React scripts, these kind of features like hot reloading and other things are possible. So, chocolate question, guys, or sticker question, whatever it is. What is hot reloading? You can unmute or write in the chat box. Okay, so no one is answering. Hot reloading is basically whenever you save a file or make changes, the project currently running in your local environment will automatically get refreshed. Like in HTML, CSS, simple static project, you have to go again and again to the browser and refresh it. It will not happen in here like this. So it will refresh it by default. So development build. So whenever you start your application npm start, it will run on your local host 3000, which is your development build. And the production build is whenever you run the command npm run build, it will make a separate build folder within your project. So what build folder is in simple language, it's just a compressed version of your project. It contains every information and like compressed javascript and all. So it's contain all necessary information which are required to deploy your react application. Different cloud platforms like Heroku and Vercel, they whenever you upload your project to these cloud platforms, they directly you directly have to run simple commands on your terminal in the same project, and they will build folder by their own. So you do not have to make extra steps and all. But some cloud platforms like Netlify and all, you have to make a build folder of your project and then upload it to the cloud platforms. Okay, so UI libraries. So there are many UI libraries for React. Some are made specially for React and some are not, but you can still use it, like Bootstrap and React Bootstrap. The difference between the Bootstrap and the React Bootstrap is React Bootstrap is special, as the name suggests, it's specially made for React components and all. So you can use either of them. Both are good. The thing is, Bootstrap's current 5.0 version is not suitable for React. If you want to use it, then 4.6 version is working. So you can't use the latest version. It's okay. So there are many other libraries like Material UI, Atomize, and Designs, which are specially built for your React, and you can use it directly. And things like, for example, you are making a nav bar. Okay, so there is this hamburger icon for mobile screens and small screens. So whenever you click it, if you have built it using Bootstrap, so whenever you click it, it shows a small animation like the panel goes down slowly. So you can't if you want to build it from scratch from css, it might take time, and it might take it may be bit difficult for beginners. So using these libraries, it will be real easy and fast to build your application uis. So guys, any question?
Guys, are you there? Like,
So,
are you listening to us?
am I audible right now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Pushpendra.
So, I guess I can continue with my part.
Any juniors are right now listening to us?
Hmm, I am not sure. Yeah, so, some of them are here. I know some of them.
Okay, good.
Okay guys, if you have any doubt
Yeah, good.
regarding this react, or like till now we have explained, or anything regarding not just react or anything, you can ask.
I know, like seeing all this code stuff quite be sometimes overwhelming. But if you will try it by your own, I'm sure you guys will figure it out, like how this things works. And we are just providing the all kind of roadmap kind of thing which you can use to build your amazing React applications.
Yes, sometimes things happen like people misses something, so we are just providing a roadmap and explanation of everything in a little brief manner so you can get it.
Okay, so like can I continue with my part? right now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm sharing. I hope it will be visible. It is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so
Um,
mm, okay, so see, uh, I am taking the part of like networking concepts in React or any kind of web application. So thinking about that, actually here I have used some of the resources I had mentioned here. You can also check it out. Check out these resources. These are really amazing, and I had prepared my things from these only. So coming to like networking thing, so networking thing is about like whenever we need some data or some stuff which we don't have and we expect from others, we try to ask them. So in computer language, we try to make some kind of request to some different device, and we expect them to respond for that. So in this there are different methods which we can use, which we can use for communicating. And coming to this API part, so API stands for application programming interface. So like, have you ever thought like so like can anyone tell me like what is API? And so can anyone tell like if someone is having some
Like,
brief idea
it,
like.
hello. We
Yeah.
can
API is
use
a path
some
through which
other.
we can connect to a different site. Some public API we can use, like say, for vaccination purpose, we can get the data from that any district, how many people have vaccinated. So through API, we can get this information. And
Yeah,
government of India has provided many APIs in their website.
yeah, right, perfectly fine. So anyone want to say?
We can use any function on someone's website in our website, like Google login. We can use Google login in our website.
So
Yeah, so that one is also API. And so anyone else want to say like, so anyone want to comment on this? What other things API? Okay, so fine. There is some another different kind of API which we can call like a system API or implementation API, in which like let me tell you, like API is a application programming interface. So like if there is any application and we want that, and we want our application to do some stuff on according to our input data, so what we will do, we will ask our application. And how we will ask our application? By using some methods, right? So whatever you guys mentioned, like asking for COVID data through different servers, and like or you mentioned different and different method as well. And like and suppose you have suppose there is some function you created, uh, and and you will just call it whenever you want to use it. So in API you never bother about its implementation part, how it is doing all that stuff. In API what we do, like we just call that API and we just expect data from that. So we never bother about these things. So example of this will be, have you like have you ever wondered like how Zomato gets the location of drivers in their application? Any
Google Maps.
suggestions? Yeah, so like it is not like Zomato has sent their satellites on outer space, and they are just and then they are tracking all these locations. It is not right. There are some companies which have already done that, and they provide those services. Using that we can get the location of users. So so Google is one of them. They provide different set of services, and API calls are used to access that services. Okay, so web service, it is a broad perspective. It is also called web services, and inside of that there are different kind of protocols, different kind of methods which we can use. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, like API stands for application programming interface, and so there are different set of methods and which we do not worry about internal implementation, right? So okay, so coming to the next part, there are different kind of API classifications. Like there are different kind of APIs available. So we can use any there are different kind of applications, and we can classify in different types of APIs. So in I here we have classified APIs on the basis of release policies. Release policies mean like to what to what extent these APIs are available to the public. So like there are some private APIs which is used within an organization. So if company had built their service for their own part, so they will just limit access to their team only. And coming to partner, like as I mentioned the example previously, Zomato and Google Maps. So like that example comes under partner APIs. So in that Zomato partners with Google Maps, and they uses their Google services for to providing the location services. And coming to public APIs, we can use GitHub APIs as well for our web development kind of things. These are really free, and and if we make a huge number of requests, it limits our it limits our it limits our access, and we need to use first create account, and they provide some API key. So most of the time you will be able to access this GitHub API. So let me give you an example. Like whenever you can use this, like GitHub provides their API, which you can use to access them. So like if you want to get the details of your username, like here I am trying to get the detail of my GitHub user account. So by providing by like this, you can make a request at this endpoint, and you can just concatenate your username in this, and it will just return the whole JSON in which it contains my account data. So you can do this to with your account as well. So here I am showing like GitHub APIs are public, so we can use them. So coming to the next part. So as I mentioned, there are some different classifications as well. Here we have classified on the basis of different types of web APIs. So in web APIs, there are most commonly two types of APIs: REST APIs and SOAP APIs. So most of the time you have used whenever you open Google website or YouTube website or Instagram, whenever you do so you just make a get request to their server, and they just so they give an HTTP response, which that gets rendered in your browser. So most of the time we use this only. But soap is used in like it is used in distributed systems. Like if we have some server in America and some server in Europe, so we need to exchange information. Like if we have some caching services on both of these locations, so we need to exchange data. So we can't rely on these REST APIs. So instead of that, we actually soap is a protocol and rest is a architecture. So actually both of them are quite similar, but there are there is some little bit difference. Like it is used in most of the cases, like in distributed systems it uses a specific XML format for sharing data. And so these things as well, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. We will be using just only the rest architecture for making APIs and all. So coming to different HTTP methods. So okay, I had mentioned here. So like when you can, there are different methods for making HTTP requests, get, post, put, and patch or delete. There are some different as well, which I had not mentioned, but you can figure it out at this resource location. You can go there and obviously you can read it out. So these are the most commonly ones. There is some convention, like whenever we try to read data, we used a read method. Whenever we try to create some database or some collection in backend, so we use these stuff. And put is like updating some things. So both of them are used for updating, but for some different specific use cases. And for delete is obviously by it is likewise, we will be able to guess it easily. Okay, so like okay, so here you might be thinking like why I am discussing these things, these server kind of things in this while we are making our React application. So it is like it is really important to communicate with different with outside world. And so that's why we need to know all these things. And so like see, when in your React application or web application, you can use different methods for accessing outside, like accessing different server. So here there is a one fetch API method which you can use, and it is the browser implementation for and to use this you will never need to install any kind of library, a third party library. So let me give you an example. So suppose like if I want this data only for my website, so what I will do, I'll just use this endpoint. I will call this URL as a endpoint. So I will make a request at this endpoint. So let me give you an example. Like I created this a sample application for your demo. So my application is hanging right now. Okay, so like so what I build, like whenever you will paste URL here, it will just make a get request to that server, and in response of that it will print the console, the output here. So you can see like uh, I pasted the URL, and what my code did, it made a request. So like on form submit, actually this is my form. I submitted the form and I got the link from this input field, and I made a get request. So how will I define get request? So whenever we use fetch API, we can pass some options, options as a second parameter. And in that we define some different properties, and if we don't specify it, it is by default get method. So I made a request, it returned a response, and I just passed that data into JSON because it is a valid JSON object. So I passed that data and I just printed that only in console log. So this is, and we can, and there are different, if we don't want to use this fetch API method, there are some different implementations as well. You can use Axios library, which is which you will get through npm. and you can download that and use that. Actually, I was trying to install that only, but it was taking really huge time to install it, so I was not able to figure it. So there are some different methods. I'll not go deep into that because these two methods I had not figured it out yet, but we can read it out, right? Uh, so we can use these methods. So any questions, like